Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I'm a 25-year-old female and I've always been the favored child of my parents in a way. The fact that my sister, 24, has always been a little mean and selfish, throwing temper tantrums instead of being a happy child, never really helped matters. She has always resented me for this fact, even though I have never faulted her for this. Every sibling has some kind of childhood rivalry. I had always expected that we would grow out of this. My sister moved to a different country when she started high school, preferring to stay at a boarding school instead of at home. I remember begging her tearfully to reconsider her decision, but she was determined because she claimed that I made her unhappy and was a negative effect on her mental health. She needed to be away from me in order to be mentally healthy. I was hurt, definitely, but I wasn't going to begrudge her a fresh start, so I said nothing more and went forward with the hope that as the years passed, she would miss me. Distance makes the heart fonder, and our relationship would improve. Things didn't move forward the way I had expected them to. She never contacted me once throughout all the years that she stayed abroad. It took me a while to accept that I would never get my sister back. But I did accept it eventually, seeing as she was a grown woman now and nothing was going to influence her decision. I regretted the break in our relationship deeply, but I tried to surround myself with friends in order to distract myself. One such friend stayed with me throughout and helped me at every stage of my life, eventually becoming my boyfriend. My sister recently returned home. I could see that her behavior with me hadn't changed. Indeed, it had worsened with time. I made a few attempts to connect with her, but she pushed me away and told me it was my punishment for always being better than her and making my parents love her less. I decided to not bother her much since I wanted to keep the peace in our household and not cause unnecessary fights. I simply took to avoiding her and only interacting with her when necessary so that she'd have no opportunity to be mad at me. She found out about my boyfriend when he came over to visit today. She had no idea that my parents had known about him for a long time, so this wouldn't be some brand new information to them. She started gloating, behaving as if she had some scoop on me that nobody knew about. She kept threatening to tell my parents about my relationship, and I tried to explain to her that they already knew. But since my parents had been really conservative when she left the house, she thought they were still the same. So she didn't believe me and was incredibly smug about being able to get me in trouble. When my parents returned home, she immediately went to them to innocently ask about the boy who came to visit me today. The best part is that she mentioned this in front of our neighbor who had come over to borrow something from my mom, so that a bigger scene could be created. Unfortunately, her plans didn't really work as they were supposed to. Instead, my mom gave her a good talking to about what kind of information was appropriate to be mentioned in front of our elderly neighbor and what wasn't. She was really angry at my sister for implying to our neighbor that I hook up with random boys and simply told her that he is my boyfriend. I have never seen my sister so shocked. She had really expected things to go her way for once and for me to get into a lot of trouble. Instead, she was the one in trouble with my parents, and they clearly saw nothing wrong with my behavior. She seemed angrier at me than ever, but honestly, she has brought this upon herself. I'm an adult. I'm allowed to have adult relationships. It's childish of her to try to get me grounded as if we were both kids again. Plus, I tried to tell her I really did, and she refused to listen to me. This doesn't seem like the end of it all. If I know my sister at all, she is going to try something bigger to sabotage me now because she wants vengeance. This is the kind of attitude that used to land her in trouble when we were kids, and it seems like she hasn't changed a bit. My parents had a really unpleasant discussion with her tonight and forced her to apologize to me for my actions, all the while keeping up a steady stream of, if you don't learn how to love your family soon enough, you won't have one. Honestly, I'm satisfied about this, but scared about what's coming. I knew something like this was going to happen. My sister is not someone who lets things go, and I should have expected matters to escalate much faster, to be honest. My mom had decided to throw a huge party welcoming my sister home. Of course, she was totally on board with this idea, and everyone was trying their hardest to make sure it's a successful celebration and not something that lets her down. She was almost pleasant to be around because of the contagious excitement in our house until I slipped up and made a grave mistake once again. I had gone to take a shower and left my mobile unlocked In my bedroom, my sister had come in to take something when she saw my unlocked mobile. She is someone who really doesn't know how to keep herself out of people's business, and this time was no exception. She just had to check my mobile and see if she could find anything to sabotage me. Being a nosy and incredibly stubborn person, she kept at it for hours until inevitably she found something in my gallery. Since my boyfriend and I are both adults, we sometimes exchange explicit messages or PG rated jokes with each other. I sometimes kept screenshots of these messages because they were memories, some funny, some romantic. My sister felt like she had discovered a gold mine. She absolutely had to transfer those screenshots to herself and wait for a suitable public moment to leak them. I had no idea about this at first because by the time I was done showering, my mobile was back to its original position. Suddenly, my sister had started behaving a lot more sweetly with me, almost as if she knew something I didn't. A few days later, she asked me outright to tell my parents that I had always lied about her being mean to me because I was jealous of her, or else she would show them screenshots from my mobile. When I, being confused, asked her what screenshots she meant, she showed them to me. Honestly, at this point, I felt a little disgusted by her. These were texts that were incredibly personal, some of them being far too revealing about me. I didn't even want my sister to read them, much less my parents. I tried to explain to her that things wouldn't end well for her if she decided to leak those messages to my family, and she laughed in my face. She told me that I was scared of the consequences, and that's why I was trying to dissuade her. At this point, I completely gave up. This is an adult woman who knows that actions have consequences. I cannot control her. I can only advise her, and if she refuses to take my advice, well, too bad for her. I simply told her to go ahead and show our parents the screenshots she had and see if they gave a satisfactory reaction. She had probably expected me to be more scared because she looked more confused than anything for a split second. Then she seemed to understand that nothing would penetrate me and gave up. Today, I couldn't hold it in any longer and confessed to my mom that my sister had found some incriminating screenshots in my mobile, and they were a little too private, but she still read them and had threatened to show them to mom. My mom assured me that she hadn't shown her any screenshots, and even if she did, my mom would simply delete them instead of reading them. She promised me that things wouldn't get awkward and she wouldn't embarrass me at all because of the screenshots. I even feel a little hopeful that she might have deleted the screenshots because she has not shown my parents anything. I won't ask her anything about this, but I'm hoping and praying that this is the end of the matter. It wasn't the end of the matter. I had naively thought that since my mom didn't know anything, the matter had been put to rest. I was wrong. I had really underestimated how petty and insensitive my sister could be. The day of her welcoming party rolled around, and she seemed especially chirpy that day. She was even polite to me, and that's when I started suspecting that something could go wrong. A leopard would change its spots sooner than my sister would change her personality. For her to do a complete 360-degree meant that there was something fishy, and that something was usually me getting in some kind of trouble or being embarrassed in some way. My mom had planned on showing a few home videos of my sister from our childhood on this TV screen for the guests as a way to reminisce about the fond memories of my sister's childhood. As the time of showing the videos rolled around, my sister began to get increasingly agitated. It took me far too long to realize that maybe she had tampered with the tapes in some way, and they were damaged or something. Before I could say anything, the tapes began to play, or rather, what we thought were the tapes. To my absolute horror and mortification, on the screen I could see all of the private text conversations with my boyfriend that I had kept as screenshots. Some of them were extremely explicit, and seeing things about my sex life and my private matters completely out in the open for my relatives and friends to gawk at was embarrassing to say the least. At this point, I really didn't know if I should laugh or cry. My mom quickly apologized to all our relatives and cut the party short. Once everyone had gone home, she turned to my sister and demanded an explanation for her behavior. She got none that were worthy, so she made an instant decision. My sister was kicked out of our family. Honestly, I feel bad for her, but she brought this upon herself. If she refuses to change, then no one is going to accept her, and we cannot keep sabotaging ourselves to put up with her. I hope she gets some help and realizes her mistakes one day. Well, the sister honestly got what she deserved. Poor OP, though. Having her privacy infringed like that. I always say that such explicit things shouldn't be kept on electronic gadgets because it's very easy to leak them and your entire life is ruined then. I really thought the story was going to go a different way. Laugh out loud. I'm glad OP is away from her sister. She doesn't need that kind of toxicity in her life. I'm a 32-year-old female, and my brother, 28, and his ex wife, 26, have been separated for 2 years. He has his boys, 5 and 2, every second weekend, if that. There have been plenty of times that he hasn't committed to those weekends and left her hanging on his weekend, and then any weekend he does have them, he basically palms them off to me. Because, in his words, they'll have more fun at your house. I have a 6-year-old twins and a 7-year-old boys, so they all play together. I get so mad at my brother and always tell him he needs to pull his head out and look after his kids, but at the same time, I just feel sorry for the boys because I know their dad isn't going to look after them properly or do anything to them. So I just take them. It's not a big deal to me because I love having them. I just hate enabling his behavior. Anyways, this recent weekend I had his boys again, and their mom came to my house to pick them up. I invited her in, and she was saying how she's noticed that she's been picking them up from mine a bit lately, and she was venting about how annoying it is that he doesn't stick to his weekends. Now, I don't blatantly say, you need to take those boys off him. But I just say, like, yeah, he's been super lazy and making up excuses not to have them. This recent week, his arm was sore. Where I think I messed up was I started saying about how taking my boys off their dad was the best thing I ever did for me and my kids, and was just saying how my ex was the same way, but eventually more serious things happened, and I ended up saying he can't have them every second weekend anymore, but he could text me anytime he wants them, and if it worked with our routine, he could have them. Anyway, I was telling her how much more freeing it is to not have to rely on him sticking to his weekend to make plans, and how my boys are happier not being let down every other weekend and not actually saying it, but kind of just hinting that she should consider it. She must have told him because I got a call from him not long after she left telling me how much of an I am and I shouldn't be interfering with his kids and how I was being an unsupportive sister trying to get his kids taken off him. I blew up at him and told him if he wasn't such a lazy deadbeat dad, I wouldn't have had to say anything, but since he won't listen and actually look after his kids, then they're better off with her. I then got a visit from my mother. My mom thinks the sun shines out of his arse and is constantly making excuses for him, saying he's just going through stuff. My mother scolded me, saying I'm judgmental and I should just mind my own business. So, AITA for hinting to my brother's ex that she should consider taking her boys off him? NTA, you didn't outright say it, OP, but you'd be hard pressed not to hear what you were saying. Your brother is a deadbeat dad. Remind your mom that going through some stuff is not an excuse. What did she say about your ex when he was going through some stuff? Maybe if she hadn't raised a spoiled brat, he could better handle it when he's going through some stuff. Tell your mom you're going through some stuff too, and if he can't handle 2 kids 4 days a month, how are you expected to handle 5? That being said, maybe work it out with his ex so the cousins can meet up. Then you could both get a weekend off once a month. I'm a 22-year-old male and I live with my parents while finishing my college degree. I do not pay rent, but I pay for utilities and some of the house bills. My twin brother Mark moved away in 2021, but came back this year after his girlfriend kicked him out of her place. 2 weeks ago, my youngest sister, Gia, 19, broke up with her boyfriend, and after much prodding, we finally found out it was because he had been cheating with one of his female friends behind her back for months. Needless to say, Gia was heartbroken over it, and he was her first boyfriend after all, and to get cheated on that way and to find out the way that she did is traumatizing to say the least. Because of that, my parents and I have been going out of our way to be nicer to her. Nothing too excessive, but my mom has been doing her laundry and baking more treats Gia likes lately. My dad gave her his credit card so that she can replace the things that she left at her ex's place, and I've been cooking more things that she likes in order to cheer her up. The only one who hasn't done anything to cheer her up is Mark. In fact, it's like he's been going out of his way to be a jerk to her. For example, when Gia was showing me the girl her ex cheated on her with, he was sitting by my side. He took one look at the girl and said, "Damn, she's way hotter than you." To which I said, "Thank God, it would be a lot worse if you thought your sister was hotter than a non related chick," which made him get pissy and go to his room, but the damage had been done. He's been making a lot of these digs lately, and when I asked him why he said that, and it was because he was annoyed that everyone was babying Gia because she's a grown woman and that type of thing happens to everyone and she shouldn't get special treatment for it. To which I pointed out that when he got kicked out, he got the same type of treatment and never complained about the babying, even though he's older than her, and that made him shut up for a while. Yesterday I was making breakfast and decided to make Gia's favorite, Nutella waffles. Mark got to the table, got himself some waffles, and everything was normal. Then Gia got to the table. We all started talking, and Gia mentioned how she had to block her ex and his friends because they kept bothering her to go and talk to him. She was clearly bothered by it. Then Mark said, "You should talk to him. God knows what you put that poor guy through to deserve to get cheated on the way you did." That was the wrong thing to say for many obvious reasons, and I can't believe he would say that out loud. So I decided not to hold back and I asked him, "Damn, sorry if you think that way, but going by that logic, what did you do to Drew, his first girlfriend, for her to cheat on you?" He did not like that, but couldn't fight my logic, so all he did was to grab the rest of the breakfast and left for his room, and he hasn't left ever since, and now I feel guilty for what I said. My mom thinks I was too cruel to him and should apologize, but Dad and Gia think I said nothing wrong. So, AITA? NTA, if he can dish it out, he should be able to take it. Maybe it'll help him realize what an a-hole he's being.